Welcome back. Let's get right into today's explainer, because we are unpacking the exact legal mechanics behind a major development in a highly publicized case. Today we're looking strictly at Bryan Kohberger's recent attempt to withdraw his guilty plea. Now, we aren't here to speculate or dive into wild true crime theories. We're going straight to the source documents to understand what a post-conviction petition actually asks the court to do, what the law strictly requires, and why that written plea agreement he signed matters so incredibly much. So, let's dive right in.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the current legal reality, the new court petition, the manifest injustice standard, claims versus the contract, and finally, what happens next.
Section 1. The current legal reality.
Let's be absolutely clear right out of the gate. Bryan Kohberger's legal status has not changed. He remains convicted and he remains behind bars. Back in July 2025, he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. He was handed 4 consecutive fixed life sentences without the possibility of parole for those murders, plus a fixed 10-year sentence for the burglary. His convictions have definitely not been vacated and no new trial has been granted.
But before we analyze all the legal maneuvering, we have to respectfully center the real reason why these court documents even exist. These crimes happened in November 2022, tragically taking the lives of 4 University of Idaho students: Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. The legal proceedings we're looking at today are the direct result of their murders.
So the foundation of our current legal reality is this document right here, the official July 2025 plea agreement, straight from the District Court of the 4th Judicial District of the state of Idaho. This is case number CR012431665. This piece of paper is the absolute bedrock of his conviction, and it's exactly what he is currently trying to undo.
Section 2. The new court petition.
Let's look at the timeline to see how this all builds up. We have the tragic events of November 2022, followed by a massive investigation and legal process that culminated in his guilty plea and sentencing in July 2025. Then, flash forward exactly 1 year later to July 27, 2026. Court records showed that Kohberger, who is actually representing himself now, filed a petition for post-conviction relief in Ada County District Court.
We really need to aggressively demystify this legal term. A petition for post-conviction relief is simply a formal request to a court to review a conviction or sentence. It's just a piece of paperwork. It is not a direct appeal. And most importantly, it is entirely different from an actual court ruling. Filing this document is merely asking the court for relief. It is absolutely not proof that relief is warranted, let alone that it will be granted.
Section 3. The manifest injustice standard.
Now, under the Idaho court's rules, changing your mind and pulling a guilty plea before you are sentenced is one thing, but trying to completely undo it after the judge has already handed down your sentence, that is a whole different ballgame. Idaho Criminal Rule 33C governs this exact situation. It explicitly states that after sentencing, a court may only set aside a conviction and permit a plea withdrawal to correct what's called a manifest injustice.
And listen, manifest injustice is an incredibly high bar to clear. The defendant has to prove a severe legal defect in the process that actually led to the plea. You can't just take back a plea deal because you have a severe case of buyer's remorse or because you suddenly decided you don't like solitary confinement. Just filing the motion does not establish a manifest injustice. The burden of proof rests entirely and heavily on the defendant who is making the claim.
Section 4. Claims versus the contract.
According to the reporting on his new petition, Kohberger alleges that his plea was not voluntary. He's claiming he received ineffective assistance of counsel, was given bad advice, and that false promises were somehow made regarding his prison conditions. He also alleges that certain evidence was not properly disclosed or reviewed by his defense team. But it is absolutely vital to remember, these are completely unproven allegations attributed to his own self-represented filing. They are not findings by any judge.
This perfectly illustrates the steep uphill battle he's facing. On one side, we have his brand new claims of coercion, bad advice, and false promises. But on the other side, we have the legally binding contract he actually signed in 2025 where he affirmed the exact opposite under oath. And remember, when a defendant signs a plea agreement, they are making statements under penalty of perjury that they are acting voluntarily.
Let's look right at page 2 of the actual July 2025 plea agreement, specifically Item 5. Here, Kohberger legally acknowledged that he was, quote, not being coerced into entering his plea of guilty. The document goes on to state that he acknowledged he was completely satisfied with his legal representation, had reviewed all possible defenses with his attorney, and by pleading guilty, he voluntarily waived those defenses.
And then, on page 3, we have the final signatures. Stipulated on June 30, 2025, Kohberger signed this agreement right alongside his defense counsel and the prosecuting attorneys. This just underscores the physical, binding reality of the contract he entered into, a contract that now stands as a massive roadblock to his current petition.
Section 5. What happens next? All right, before we look at the exact legal steps coming up, if you take only one thing away from this explainer, let it be this. Do not confuse allegations with established facts. A claim written down in a petition is not a judicial finding of truth. And asking to withdraw a plea or asking for a new trial is definitively not the same thing as actually receiving one.
So, the mechanical steps the court has to take now involve thoroughly reviewing the petition just to see if the claims even warrant further exploration. The court might need to examine exactly what his lawyers told him before the plea, whether he truly grasped the rights he was surrendering, and whether his claims actually meet Idaho's incredibly strict manifest injustice standard. This could potentially lead to an evidentiary hearing, followed eventually by a formal judicial ruling based strictly on the law and the evidence.
So, that leaves us with one massive, overarching legal question. Can he actually prove a serious legal defect strong enough to overcome his own signed agreement, his own courtroom answers, and a final binding judgment? As of right now, Bryan Kohberger remains convicted and imprisoned. The court has not granted a new trial or withdrawn his guilty plea. We're just going to have to wait for the judicial process to unfold to see if his paperwork holds up to the rigorous scrutiny of the law. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'm signing off for Neural Edge Publishing. Stay curious and keep looking at the sources.